When I was 18, my sister cleaned out my college fund to pay for her wedding. Everyone told me to let it go and be the bigger person. I stayed silent, built my own future from scratch, and years later, I bought the house she's been renting, without her knowing. This is the story of how I turned her betrayal into my quietest, smartest revenge. I grew up in what most people would call a close-knit family. Sunday dinners, holiday photos, inside jokes, the works. We weren't rich, but my parents had always said they were putting aside a small college fund for me. As a kid, it was my safety net. As a teenager, it became my motivation. I kept my grades up, worked part-time jobs, stayed out of trouble, believing there was a future waiting for me after high school. My sister, Laura, was 4 years older. Charming, magnetic, always the life of the party. Where I was cautious, she was. Spontaneous, where I planned, she improvised. My parents doted on her in a way I didn't fully understand back then. She'd stumble, they'd rescue her. She'd overspend, they'd cover her. Still, I never resented her. She was my big sister. By the time I turned 18, my entire identity revolved around the next step. College. I had letters of acceptance on my desk, a scholarship that covered part of the tuition, and the rest would come from that family fund I'd been promised. I remember feeling a rare moment of security, like the years of hard work and discipline had been worth it. Then, one rainy afternoon, everything changed. My parents called me into the living room. Laura sat there too, eyes red from crying. They spoke in soft tones about family obligations and unexpected circumstances. Her fiancé had left her with a mountain of wedding deposits and bills. She was desperate. She needed a lifeline. Without asking me first, they'd already given it to her, my college fund. I still hear my own voice that day, thin and shaky. "You gave her my money?" Their answer was a chorus of rationalizations. "We'll figure something out. Family comes first. You're young, you'll manage." Laura didn't even look at me. She just stared at the floor. In that moment, a switch flipped. I felt my stomach sink and my throat burn, but no tears came. All I could think was, I'm on my own now. That night, lying awake in my room, I made 2 promises to myself. 1. I would still build the future I wanted, even if I had to claw my way up from nothing. 2. I wouldn't forget how this felt. The silence, the betrayal, the realization that my safety net was gone. What I didn't know then was that this quiet resolve would set in motion a chain of decisions leading to one of the most satisfying moments of my life. But at 18, all I could do was breathe, swallow my anger, and start planning. Because if my family had taught me anything, it was that no one was coming to save me but me. When I left my parents' living room that day, I felt like the floor under my life had vanished. But under the shock was a strange kind of clarity. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't even text my friends about it. Instead, I went quiet. That silence became my shield. I got a job. Actually, 3 jobs. In the mornings, I stocked shelves at a grocery store. In the afternoons, I took shifts at a coffee shop near campus. Nights and weekends, I freelanced online. Data entry, small design projects, anything that paid. College was off the table for now, but saving wasn't. Every paycheck went into an account with my name only. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Meanwhile, Laura's life looked like a soap opera on social media. New outfits, weekend getaways, candlelit dinners with people who seemed to change every few months. She never posted about work. She never posted about paying me back. When I bumped into her at family events, she'd give me a hug that smelled like expensive perfume and say things like, "You'll thank me one day for teaching you self-reliance." I smiled, nodded, and went back to my shifts. The first turning point came about 2 years later. I had been promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store and picked up a remote admin job for a tech startup. Between those, my savings were finally growing. But more importantly, I'd begun learning about money. I read personal finance blogs on my lunch breaks. I devoured books on investing, real estate, and contracts. Each chapter felt like an antidote to the helplessness I'd felt at 18. Around that time, Laura called me out of the blue. Her voice was sweet, almost sticky. "Hey, little brother," she said. "You know that cute townhouse I've been renting? The owner's thinking of selling. Isn't that crazy?" I played dumb. "Oh, you thinking of buying it?" She laughed. "God, no. I can barely keep up with rent. But it would suck to have to move again. You know how much I love this place." That night, I couldn't sleep. The pieces in my mind started to click. Laura had taken my college fund, money meant to secure my future. Now she was sitting in a house she didn't own, paying rent she struggled to cover, completely unaware that the tables were about to turn. Over the next few weeks, I quietly gathered information. Public property records told me who owned the townhouse. Market listings showed me the asking price. My bank's pre-approval process told me what I could afford. At first it felt like daydreaming, but soon it became a plan. I met with a discreet real estate agent in another part of town. Over coffee, I explained that I was interested in buying a property but wanted privacy. We set up viewings and drafted an offer with a clause that would allow me to keep the existing tenant for a transitional period. Every step was careful, methodical, paper-trailed. Meanwhile, at family dinners, I stayed perfectly normal. I asked Laura about her job. I complimented her outfits. I even offered to help her move furniture when she complained about a leaky pipe. She had no idea that in a few weeks I would own the walls around her. The suspense became almost unbearable. There were days when I wanted to blurt it out, to throw the betrayal back in her face. But each time, I remembered that night at 18, lying awake, making promises to myself. This wasn't about revenge through rage. This was about reclaiming control, ethically and quietly. When my offer was accepted, I signed the papers with a calm hand but a racing heart. The closing date was set. The bank wired the funds. My savings, the ones built from countless double shifts, became a down payment on a property whose rent covered the mortgage. For the first time in years, I felt the ground under my life again. Yet I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not my friends, not even the agent after the closing. I wanted the reveal to come in its own time, shaped not by pettiness but by facts. Weeks later, Laura mentioned casually at dinner that her landlord was dragging his feet about some repairs. She rolled her eyes and said, "I swear, some people shouldn't be allowed to own property." I sipped my water, nodded sympathetically, and changed the subject. In private, I set up a professional property management company to handle communications with tenants, including Laura. I wanted everything above board. No favoritism, no hidden clauses, just the standard legal process. If she paid rent on time, nothing would change. If she didn't, the notices would be automatic. Each email from the management company to Laura felt like a chess move. She responded with the same breezy tone she always used, unaware that every "Dear Landlord" greeting was, in fact, to me. By now, my parents were starting to sense that I was doing well. They'd ask gentle questions. "How's work? Still living frugally?" I'd smile and keep answers vague. Years of being underestimated had taught me the value of mystery. There was one moment, though, that almost cracked my composure. At a birthday party for our mom, Laura pulled me aside and said, "I really do appreciate everything you've done for me. You're the stable one in the family." It sounded like praise, but to me it felt like a knife wrapped in ribbon. She still saw me as the reliable backup plan, the person she could take from without consequence. Driving home that night, I realized the true shape of my plan. It wasn't just about owning the house. It was about owning my narrative. The money she'd taken from me had forced me to grow up fast. Now, I was turning that growth into leverage. In the quiet of my apartment, I opened my laptop and drafted a letter. Not to Laura, but to myself. It laid out the milestones I'd hit. Savings rebuilt, property acquired, management in place. At the bottom, I wrote a single line. Wait until the right moment. That right moment was approaching faster than I expected. A small storm was gathering. Laura had fallen behind on rent and was complaining loudly to anyone who would listen about her landlord's unfair policies. Friends were telling me she was shopping for a new place but couldn't find one she liked. Meanwhile, my parents were hinting that maybe I could help Laura out just this once, not realizing I already was, just not in the way they thought. The tension in my life was now a taut string, humming with anticipation. Every smile at dinner, every polite nod to my parents, every text from Laura complaining about the owner, all of it felt like a countdown. I kept my cool, biding my time, refining the plan for the reveal. Because I didn't want a screaming match. I wanted a moment so calm and clear that no one could spin it. A moment where facts spoke louder than grudges. I didn't know exactly when it would happen, whether it would be at a family gathering, during one of Laura's rants, or at the end of her lease. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. When the truth came out, it would be undeniable. That was the power I'd been building in silence. That was the moment I was preparing for. The day the truth surfaced wasn't dramatic at first. It was a sunny Saturday in early spring, and our parents had invited us both for lunch. Laura arrived late, flustered, complaining about her landlord again. "He raised the rent," she said, stabbing at her salad. "And he's threatening eviction if I don't pay on time. Can you believe it?" Everyone around the table murmured sympathy. I sat quietly, sipping my tea. Inside, my heart was steady, not racing. I'd been waiting for this moment. Laura turned to me. "You're good with money. Can you talk to him for me? Maybe negotiate a lower rent? You're always the sensible one." I set my cup down and looked at her. "Actually," I said evenly, "I think you and I already have a conversation to finish." The table went silent. Our parents glanced between us, confused. Laura frowned. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, copies of the property deed and management agreement. I slid it across the table. "I'm your landlord. Laura, I bought the townhouse last year. Every rent check you've been mailing, it's been going to me." Her face drained of color. "What? That's... You're joking." "No joke," I said softly. "You took the money meant for my education. I built myself up from scratch, and now I own the roof over your head. I didn't raise your rent. The lease always had that clause. I've treated you like any other tenant. Nothing more, nothing less." Our parents gasped. Laura's hands trembled as she flipped through the papers. The reality was right there in black and white. I leaned forward, my voice still calm. "I'm not here to humiliate you. I wanted you to understand what it feels like when someone takes your future and uses it for themselves. But unlike what happened to me, you still have choices. Pay your rent on time, or move. Either way, we'll both be free." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then our father cleared his throat and said quietly, "We didn't know, son. We're sorry." I nodded. "I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for respect. From now on, my boundaries matter. My work matters. My future matters." Laura stared at me, tears forming, but no words came. The power dynamic in the room had shifted, not with shouting, but with paperwork, patience, and facts. I stood up, tucked the folder back into my bag, and said simply, "Lunch was lovely. I'll send the new lease terms through the management company." Then I walked out, the spring air cool on my face, feeling lighter than I had in years. I didn't slam the door or make a dramatic exit. I just walked out of my parents' house, folder tucked under my arm, the spring sun on my face. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of resentment sliding off my shoulders. I hadn't screamed or sought revenge in the classic sense. I'd simply stood up for myself, and that felt enough. In the weeks that followed, Laura's texts were short and cautious. At first, she sent angry messages. "How could you do this to me? You're so petty." I didn't respond. Later, her tone softened. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. Can we talk?" This time, I replied, not with gloating, but with clear boundaries. "We can talk if it's about moving forward and respecting each other." Our parents called me privately, apologizing for how blind they'd been to my sacrifices. They admitted they'd let Laura's charm and constant emergencies shape their decisions. Hearing them acknowledge it didn't erase the past, but it helped me see that the pattern had been bigger than just the two of us. Meanwhile, the townhouse became a kind of symbol. Every time a rent payment arrived, I didn't see it as income. I saw it as proof that I could build something out of nothing. I'd lost my college fund, but I'd gained an education in resilience, finance, and self-respect that no university could have offered. After 6 months, Laura moved out. She found a smaller apartment and, from what I've heard, started taking better care of her own finances. We're not close the way siblings are in movies, but we're civil, and for now, that's enough. People sometimes ask me if I regret what I did, if it was too harsh or too cold. I tell them the truth. It wasn't about punishment. It was about teaching myself that I'm allowed to set boundaries, that generosity without respect turns into self-erasure, and if someone learns a lesson from that, all the better. Looking back, I've realized that revenge stories aren't always about explosions and drama. Sometimes the quietest moves are the strongest ones. Sometimes the real power is in not letting someone else's choices define your worth. On the anniversary of the day Laura took my college fund, I stood outside the townhouse, keys in my hand. The building wasn't just brick and mortar anymore. It was a marker of my journey, from being a silent victim to becoming someone who takes action, even if it's uncomfortable. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and smiled. My story didn't end with a family feud or a courtroom battle. It ended with clarity, with dignity, with a future that belonged finally to me.